What is going on, YouTube people? Today, we got a little SGC Pete, or as I'm going to call him, Presidential Pete. It looks like he's doing a presidential address. Came to the masses via Instagram yesterday for some updates on their backlog, some expanded capacity, and for the first time in months, grading specials. That's right. So, he kind of ran down, that they've definitely been a little backlogged lately, but they are confident they are back down to 5 to 10 business days going forward. I did a little digging on Blowout on the SGC thread on there, and it does seem like people were trending towards that over the last few posts in that thread where people track. And someone on yesterday's video had commented, or maybe it was the day before, that they had got one back in about 14 business days. So it does seem like they're kind of trending back towards that direction now that they've kind of cleared that little lump that they had in there. So what this means is grading specials are a coming, and he hits us with two for the price of one. $9 Series 2. So that comes out this week. That drops on Wednesday. I actually have 2 jumbo boxes that ordered from Tops. So hopefully I will have those sometime later this week to open up on the channel. And then also a basketball special, $12, any basketball card. No era, no whatever, just you got a basketball card, you want it graded, it's $12. So the basketball one is probably going to be a little bit better for them than Series 2. Series 2, outside of a couple rookie pitchers, is kind of going to be probably a little meh. So I'm not sure how much that's going to generate in regards to submissions. It'll something we'll be able to see, because the one good thing when SGC gets down to fast turnaround times, you get a real good idea what their true demand looks like on the gem rate data every month, because you know it doesn't take them long to process an order. So now that they are through that backlog and they have this expanded capacity, we now know they're back down to 5 to 10 days. June and July's SGC numbers should be a little telling. It'll probably take until July till we see that, but maybe even by the end of June, because we know what their capacity is now. They just set a record-breaking month last month, so we know what they could potentially top out at. So if it continues to reach that maximum, that tells you that demand for their service is equaling their output. If it starts to dip a little bit, that's when we'll see if things will slow down. Now, they could juice it with these specials, which a lot of the companies do. So that's no surprise there. We'll see how they tweak these going forward. I don't know if he said on here, because we didn't get official word on the Series 2 one. He said that would drop on Wednesday when the set releases. Or the product releases, we'll see what the end date is for that. If this is going to run for a couple of weeks, couple of months to the national, or if this is a limited time thing. But like I said, Series 2, kind of a weird product this year in regards to first Tops rookies coming out of that, which those would be the things that you would potentially want to send in from them. Parallels of, Dominguez or Ellie and stuff like that, even though that they're not their true base rookie. Will probably still do okay. But those are the 2 specials they came out with. Will anyone respond to this? PSA, they don't really need to, because 1, they're the same company now, or owned by the same company. And 2, they're doing just fine. They just set a record-breaking month. They just rolled out their same specials from last month. Do we see Beckett rolled something out fairly recently? Does CGC have anything up their sleeve? CGC hasn't done anything with pricing for quite a while. So we'll see if maybe they shake the snow globe a little bit. But everyone appears to be kind of settling into their pre-national whatever they want to do, and then gear up for that event here in the coming months. We kind of talked about that during the gem rate data. So I was kind of curious before we kind of wrap up here. I did pull up just to see what the current comps were on like a base Prism Victor, because I figure most people ripping this stuff are probably going to be sending in modern basketball. And I also took a quick glance at Ellie De La Cruz Top Series 1, just to kind of get a vibe for Series 2 stuff. Now, I looked at base, so it's not 100% fair, because you're probably going to send parallels in. So the Victor right now, and this is over the last 30 days, these things have all still been trending down as inventory continues to hit the market. PSA 10 Victor, down about 20%. That's sitting at $140 in a PSA 10. An SGC 10 goes for $90. So about a $50 difference there. A PSA 9, a raw, and an SGC 9 down at the bottom. A PSA 9 is currently doing about $50, which is actually have flipped in the just recently when I looked at this, at least for silvers anyway. Raw was going higher than PSA 9s. It seems like the lower value you get, it flips back to how it used to be. So a raw, or PSA 9 is going for about $50. A raw is going for about $40, and then an SGC 9 is selling for less than raw at $35. I don't have SGC 9.5s on here because one hadn't sold since mid-May, and I didn't want to compare something. Whenever I do these comparisons, I always like to make sure that they line up within a couple days of each other as best as humanly possible. So using base, you could kind of see that. So still a pretty decent gap there between a PSA 10 and an SGC 10. Now, if SGC could get back to 5 or 10 business days, now you get the speed advantage out of them, which they hadn't had the last few months. PSA bulk, last I heard, and it has been a minute, is still running at about 30 days, but I don't know if that's still the case. If anyone has a recent submission, feel free to fire away in the comments down below on how that's kind of moving. And then, raw, you're hosed, or I'm sorry, SGC 9, you're hosed, PSA 9, you're basically losing a little bit of money on the submission fee, assuming this trend holds. And then an SGC 9.5 is a little bit of a wild card. On an Ellie De La Cruz, just to kind of give you an idea for Top Series 2. Now, obviously, this card's going to sell for more than his base, but just to kind of give you an idea of, how SGC is performing in tops. PSA 10 is going for $45. An SGC 10 is going for about $30. An SGC 9.5, $18. An SGC 9.15 and a PSA 9.15. I didn't include raw here because a raw LE Top Series 1 is like a $2 card, maybe a $3 card. It's not that expensive. It's a couple bucks. So you are, you're basically breaking even on 9s on either PSA or SGC. Actually, you're losing a little bit with selling fees. SGC 9.5, you're probably breaking even with selling fees, but just barely. And then a PSA 10 and an SGC 10, I mean, you're squeaking out a little bit there, but it's risky. Now, obviously, you should not really be sending in base cards, especially of Series 2, to SGC especially, and then even PSA, honestly, would be a stretch. I can't think of, maybe Yamamoto and maybe the Cubs pitcher that I always blank on his name. I think those are the only two really frontline rookies in Top Series 2. If you want to get cute with that, but that feels risky. Now, Parallels, whole different story. But just to kind of give you a little bit of a snapshot here of what kind of current pricing and comps are going for on at least some of the most common cards that are probably going to get opened. I think where people fall into the trap is the base thing. They see the $9 Series 1 and they fall into this trap of grading everything. I know I've done that myself personally on grading specials where I see a cheap price and I'm like, oh, let me squeeze in these couple extra cards to reach a certain minimum or just to throw a couple more cards in the submission. And in the back of my mind, a little voice is telling me, you probably shouldn't be sending these in and you're probably going to get burned on them. And then what do you know? I send them in and I 9 times out of 10 end up getting burned on them. You can grade base and make profit on it, but it is tricky and you have to be quick. You have to not mess around, especially on this really low end stuff. So the Series 2 thing, I'll be very curious to see how much business that actually drives for them. Now, if you're just collecting and you just want the card slabbed up, go with God. Do whatever you want to do. This doesn't apply to you. But if you're grading to try to flip or rip the box and try to flip, setting it in for grading could be a little risky, especially on this lower end stuff. Just kind of keep that in mind. Always something good to file away. That's all I got for you, boys and girls. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.